Coming up on this episode of 101 Sports,
we interview one of the most promising players in the MLB,
dissect two of Week 11's most intriguing matchups,
and preview the college basketball season.
All that plus much more, and it all starts right now. Welcome back to another episode of 101 Sports. I'm Stephen Normington. David Beckham's eldest son, Brooklyn, is officially an Arsenal Gunner. How disappointed are Red Devil fans right now?
Not as disappointed as they will be at the season's end.
True.
I'm Preston, Willett, and here are your starting five. It's been a long season for the Minnesota Vikings, both on and off the field. But this past week, the NFL Players Association petitioned the league for the immediate reinstatement of Vikings star running back Adrian Peterson until a determination of any discipline. Steve, should Roger Goodell consider having Peterson play the season?
I'm going to completely take a 180 on my previous stance. No, Adrian Peterson should not play in the NFL, and he should never play in the NFL again. NFL employees, no matter if you're on the field, in the front office, the garbage man, should be held to the same standards as any other employee across the United States. If you beat your son, you're going to get fired, especially if you have a criminal investigation about it.
Steve, I love everything you're saying. I completely agree with it. I'm just going to come from the NFLPA perspective here.
Which?
They have to represent the players no matter what they've done. And in this situation, they're simply representing this player, and they just want his suspension lifted until the situation is resolved and there's a discipline handed down.
It's interesting that you bring that up, because when you talk to previous players that were involved with the NFLPA, they echo the same opinions. As big of a scumbag as someone is, you have to stand by them. However, what really disturbed me is he didn't show any remorse, like Michael Vick. If he showed remorse and actually cared about what he did and apologized, I'd be fine with him.
You're not going to get that from Adrian Peterson.
Last week, ESPN employee and Grantland's editor-in-chief Bill Simmons made some headlines by comparing LeBron James' return to Cleveland to Albert Pujols' time with the Los Angeles Angels. For those casual baseball fans out there, this is a major story because Pujols has struggled mightily since leaving St. Louis. Should Cavs fans be worried about LeBron and company's slow start and these comparisons?
Steve, I got 2 points to make right now. It's LeBron James, number one.
The best player in the world.
Yes, and don't you forget it.
Okay.
Number two, Bill Simmons should just be suspended again just for saying something as ridiculous as this. This is LeBron
he might
James.
have a suspension for the Mike Golick fight.
Well, he's gonna get a lot of suspensions coming his way because he's Bill Simmons. He just says outrageous stuff like this. The Cavs are fine. Let's jump back a couple seasons ago. We'll go back to a team.
Okay.
You know, LeBron James, Chris Bosh coming down to Miami.
Miami round one.
Chill with Dwayne Wade. They went 9-8. Everyone's freaking out. You know what happened at the end of the season?
Yeah, they lost to the Mavericks.
No.
They lost to the Mavericks.
They made
in
the finals, though. They made the finals.
This team, when you have LeBron James, the best player in the world, and you have the best power forward in the world, Kevin Love, you have one expectation. That's to win a world championship.
Well, okay.
And if they don't, it's a failure.
LeBron's already come out and said they're not going to win an NBA championship this year.
He said that, but what does he really think? You're a competitor. If you say you're not going to win an NBA championship, that's absolutely ridiculous. Come on.
There's no question that he wants to win an NBA championship. He just thinks it's going to take a while for the chemistry to work in, and that's true.
Everyone expects him to win a championship,
That's
though.
true.
You can't argue against that.
Chemistry takes time. Between opening night Christmas Day games and the playoffs, the NBA has seen its popularity rise over the past couple of years. This season, the NBA is on pace to set a league record for ticket sales in a season. With the NBA's new multi-billion-dollar TV deal with the league, popularity will only continue to grow. Which brings up the question, Steve, are we entering the new golden age for the NBA?
This shouldn't even be a question. And the only reason why this is a valid statistic is because the economy is better than it's ever been. We're down to under $3 a gallon for gas. I never remember that. I can go see my 76ers play for under $1. Who wouldn't want to do that? But the best golden age decade of basketball is the 90s. You have 20 Hall of Famers.
Until now.
Oh my gosh, come on.
Okay, I'm not going to say we're there. We're not there. We are merely entering, and that was the question, correct?
Yeah, that was the question.
Entering into this. Look at the young superstars coming up in the league right now. Jabari Parker, Andrew Wiggins, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Anthony Davis.
Okay, I'll stop you at Anthony Davis because in the 90s, you had so many marketable players that were funny, great with interviews. Anthony Davis is a great player, but he doesn't say anything
We got
interesting.
funny players
He's
all
not a
over the
funny
league.
guy.
Blake Griffin's funny. We know that. But we also have young teams that are coming up. New Orleans, Milwaukee.
Hey, Preston, during this decade, is there a guy named Michael Jordan playing? Because no matter where he played, he was the #1 news story. And you can't say that about any player, including LeBron James. Number one story in the news.
We do have a guy named LeBron James, and he's
Okay, let's move on. San Francisco 49ers linebacker Aldon Smith makes his return from a suspension this week. But due to taxes and contractual violations, Smith will have to pay the 49ers more than $600,000 to play this season. Does it make sense for him to suit up?
No, he's risking way too much right now. Let's just think about this. He's still on his rookie contract, so he's not getting paid a lot of money. So coming up, he's going to have to get that new contract. If he keeps playing and gets hurt, like a serious knee injury or something, he's not going to get paid.
We never want to see that happen, but we don't have access to his bank accounts or how well he does with sponsors. So it's kind of really tough to judge whether or not.
Because he has a good character right now.
But if he can really improve his image by playing and draw interest to teams for free agency, he needs to do that because right now he's at a low point in his career because no one trusts him.
He's paying back over half the contract that he's getting paid this year.
That shows commitment, though, right?
Does it show commitment, or does it just show that he's making poor life decisions? And if he gets hurt, this could ruin his career, completely derail it. Staying in the Bay Area, the Oakland Raiders' lease of the Oakland Coliseum expires at the end of the season, and it's been well documented that the team's been linked to Los Angeles for years. However, this week, the Raiders team representatives traveled to San Antonio to discuss a possible move. Should the Raiders leave Oakland, and would San Antonio be a good destination?
San Antonio already has the whole black and silver thing going with the Spurs.
That's it.
So that's
it.
That's the only fit that you really have.
That's it.
You want Silicon Valley. You want the big cash. LA's a #2 market. They haven't had an NFL team. They scared away too. You got to get a team there.
Think about what the Oakland Raiders could get by moving to Los Angeles. They wouldn't lose their
any fans.
They wouldn't lose their fan base because it's not that far of a move. Plus, they would gain more fans because they don't have to split a fan base with the San Francisco 49ers. They're #2 media market, as you mentioned, in the country. And they get a state-of-the-art facility that's going to be paid for most likely by the NFL.
A very interesting move late last night by the NFL was changing the dates that you could submit relocation forms and applications. Interestingly enough, it's after the Super Bowl now, so it won't cause a distraction in the playoffs. And guess what? If you're the NFL, essentially the only month that you're not the #1 most popular sport in the United States is those few weeks after the Super Bowl. Now, with the team moving to LA, you have that period.
Ride
Huge for the
high on
NFL.
someone winning the Super Bowl, and then, we have the Los Angeles Raiders.
That's all the time we have for the starting five. Coming up, our NFL experts dissect Week 11's most intriguing matchups.
Week 11 in the NFL, we could not be more excited. That's why we have NFL analysts Eric DeStefano and Connor Delpre to take an in-depth look at some of the Week 11's biggest matchups. Because as we know, for most NFL teams, the playoffs are getting closer and closer. Let's start with the Bengals versus the Saints, two teams that are not doing as well as we thought they would coming into this season. Eric, what are we looking for in this matchup?
So in this matchup, we know Andy Dalton last week against the Browns. He didn't perform very well, but this week I look for them to go to the air a lot versus the Saints. And the Saints secondary, they're pretty beat up, and they're just not very good. They're without Keenan Lewis, who's shown the ability to shadow top wide receivers in the past. So, as we know, A.J. Green back last week, and he's going to do some damage this week. And particularly in the deep passing game, because 46% of his targets go for 15 yards or more. And the Saints, they're just don't have a very good pass defense. So I expect Hugh Jackson, the offensive coordinator for the Bengals, to use some play action fakes and hit A.J. Green.
A.J. Green is great and all, but this is still a Cincinnati passing team that only has 9 touchdowns. They're one of 2 teams with under 10 touchdowns. The other team is the Vikings.
But that's been without A.J. Green for several
Mohamed
weeks.
Sanu stepped up and they still couldn't score touchdowns when they were passing. I look at actually on the opposite end. I look at a revamped Saints offense facing a porous Cincinnati defense. Look, Mark Ingram has exploded the past 3 games with a 300-yard-plus games. He's only had 1 in his career before those 3, so he's obviously shown that he is the workhorse and a safety valve for Drew Brees. And he's playing a Cincinnati defense that is missing Vontaze Burfict and Ray Maluga, who finished first and second respectively in the tackles. But they got destroyed. They got absolutely decimated by the Cleveland Browns running attack, 170 yards. Are you kidding me?
Well, guys, that's going to be a big matchup. Both those teams really need a win. But going into two teams that have performed way better, and what I would say is probably the game of the week, the Lions at the Cardinals, two very strong defenses, some very explosive offensive weapons there. But Arizona doesn't have Carson Palmer anymore.
Right.
What's the storyline?
And that's
there?
exactly it. That's the storyline right there. They don't have Carson Palmer. I have the swarming Detroit defense beating up the Palmerless Cardinals. Look, the Detroit defense has been at the top of the league in most categories this year. They're third in the league in passing yards allowed, second in the league in rushing yards allowed with only 70 yards. They've forced 10 interceptions, and they've come up with big interceptions in clutch moments, like Glover Quinn's interception against the Saints in Week 7. This team loves to come from behind, but I don't even think they're going to have to come from behind against an Arizona team that has Drew Stanton.
they're going to
at
have to come from
quarterback.
behind.
Are they? Why? Why is that?
Yeah,
Why is
because
that?
Detroit's not gonna, are they going to score?
Yes.
Are they going to score?
Calvin Johnson, Golden
No,
Tate.
no,
They have some
no.
weapons.
Patrick Peterson, Tyrann Mathieu.
They rely too heavily
Antonio
on the
Cromartie.
takeaway. They still allow.
They'll be fine.
They still allow
They'll be
bottom third
absolutely
in the league
fine.
in passing yards. They
They
just
have an
rely too heavily on the
They have
takeaway.
an excellent rush D and pass D. Detroit, they can't move the ball on the ground. Joik Bell, please.
Well, and you mentioned
You
that.
rely on Joik Bell to
No,
get yards
they
and
don't.
Theo
That's
Riddick?
the thing. That's the thing. They don't rely on them. They've been one-dimensional this whole season, and they've still succeeded. They found a
They
way to
won't
score
in
on
this game.
offense. Why?
They have not played a defense quite like Arizona.
This
You
is
have
also-
Patrick Peterson and Antonio Cromartie, two shutdown corners. That pretty much not necessarily takes away Calvin Johnson, takes away Golden Tate. You can
Well, if we're
forget
talking about
it.
the Lions scoring, let's talk about the Cardinals scoring. Drew Stanton has posted two
They'll be
sub-36
fine.
QBRs. He hasn't gotten the ball to Larry Fitzgerald. The reason why the Cardinals succeed is they rely on big plays and getting the ball to Larry Fitzgerald this season. Drew Stanton does not do that.
I think they'll be able to do it in this game. And this game's going to be about defense. I think we both agree. And they're allowing opposing QBs a QB rating of 81.3. That's good for 8th in the league. That's pretty solid. Stafford, they're going to have to throw the ball a lot, and he's not going to be very
Detroit's defense
successful
isn't
doing
too
it.
shabby.
These are two big time teams in this league. That both of them are probably going to make the playoffs. But those are just two of the biggest games this Sunday as teams really start to jostle for playoff position. But coming up next, Steve and our NBA experts get a little bold.
Danse, balance la cadence, ondule bien tes hanches, au bal du dimanche.
You didn't give up on sex. Don't give up on birth control either. There are more methods than you think. Find yours at bedsider.org.
Phil Jackson and Adam Silver at odds, talk of the Thunder tanking, and the Philadelphia 76ers as bad as advertised. It's the NBA with Chris Edwards and Stephen A. Harris. Today we are providing bold predictions based on what we've seen thus far this season. Chris, I'm excited to hear this. Let's kick things off.
Okay, so here's my first bold prediction. Golden State, the Warriors, are going to go all the way to the Western Conference Finals and make a good run of the NBA Finals because what I've been seeing right now, they've been a really, really solid team. They are third in points per game, fourth in assists per game, and here's a really big stat. They are fifth in points allowed per game. This is actually a good, solid team, and it's being led, of course, by the Splash Bros and Steph Curry, who's averaging 28 points per game, 7 assists. And then you have Klay Thompson, who's averaging 23 points and a very good high 2-point and 3-point percentage. I'd be surprised to not see them in the Western Conference Finals.
You know, you said it yourself, they've been playing so well that maybe that's not as bold a prediction as we're thinking.
maybe.
Well, for my prediction, I'm going to say that the Oklahoma City Thunder just missed the playoffs.
Ooh.
Between Durant, Westbrook being out, and the rest of their wing rotation being
That
out,
looks
with
good.
Anthony Morrow and Perry Jones being hurt and Jeremy Lamb being hurt, they have no scoring threat. They have no wings at all. Ibaka is their main scoring threat. And you know what? They were talking about tanking. Maybe they should tank because last time a team was hampered by injuries and just ended up sacrificing the season for the sake of a draft pick, it was the Spurs, and they ended up with
Tim Duncan.
Timmy D, Tim Duncan. So maybe it's not a bad idea if they tank.
Honestly, that may be the best option for them at this point because I'm looking at them like they are not the same Oklahoma City that we've been seeing. And
Exactly.
then even when Westbrook comes back and maybe Durant, but that's a huge maybe, they're going to be so depleted and the West is going to be so tough this year. Like Memphis is making strides. Sacramento is making a lot of strides. Like they are really surprising me. I'll get to that in a minute.
Loving what I see from DeMarcus Cousins, by the way.
Exactly, and that's actually going to my next point, actually. DeMarcus Cousins is going to be an all-star
There
this
we go.
year, and here we go. He's going to lead the Kings to the playoffs for the first time and end the 8-year drought that's been occurring in Sacramento because just saying right now DeMarcus Cousins is one of the main focal points, both offensively and defensively for this Kings team. 23 points, 11 rebounds, 1 block per game. He's actually a really good free throw shooter as well, averaging about 77%. That's really, really good for a center. He's really been improving. His maturity is increasing as well. The sky's the limit for Sacramento. I don't want to jinx them, but who knows? They may get one of those low 6 to 8 playoff spots because, again, the West is a really tough conference, but who knows? I'm really thinking
that'll be interesting to see going forward. I'm not 100% sold on the Kings yet. Maybe I'm sold on DeMarcus Cousins being an all-star for sure, but I'm not sold on them.
Maturity showed holding back his head coach.
I know that was the funniest thing.
I'm not really sure I'm not sold on them being a playoff team quite yet in the tough Western Conference. But my last prediction is that Anthony Davis will take away the MVP award this year. Ooh. I know LeBron James took his year off from voter fatigue and gave it to Kevin Durant last year, but Anthony Davis has been on a tear. He's averaging 24 points per game, 12 rebounds, 2.5 steals, and over 4 blocks. He might not be able to maintain those numbers, but if he can even stay close in that range, there's no doubt in my mind that he's going to be able to take away the MVP award. I think he's going to lead the Pelicans to the playoffs and end their drought that's been going on. Yeah. And I just think LeBron James, he's taken a little bit of a dip, and they might take away. It might end up what happening the first year when he was in Miami. Yeah. When they gave it to Derrick Rose because he's with these new superstar teammates. So it's a question of whether or not it's him or it's the team and stuff like that. Anthony Davis is single-handedly carrying this Pelicans team to the playoffs right now and looking like a great superstar in this league.
Totally agree. So excited about Anthony Davis, as I was last week. Great stuff, gentlemen. Coming up, Preston and I talk with Arizona Diamondbacks center fielder A.J. Pollock.
Welcome back to One-on-One Sports. We are now joined on the phone by Arizona Diamondbacks center fielder A.J. Pollock.
A.J., thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
When you played this season, you posted career-high numbers. Did you make any adjustments entering the year?
I don't know about big adjustments. I think you just kind of learn and you get a little smarter. You might have the same idea like you did the year before, but you get a little more confident and you get a little more willing to take chances and kind of go all in on certain ideas and certain approaches you want to have. And I think that's what kind of happened with me. I just got a little more confident with it. And it's amazing what a little bit of confidence can get you.
Well, unfortunately, you broke your right hand by getting hit by a pitch, and we're only able to play 75 games this season. Talk about the rehab process in the big leagues and what that was like for you.
It's kind of weird because in Major League Baseball, you play so many games and you get so locked into a rhythm. It never stops, and then all of a sudden you get hit, and then everything stops. And it's just, it's a challenge. It really is. And then knowing you're coming back during the season and knowing it's your job, whether the team's doing well or not, like you really gotta show your stuff. I think they really wanted to see, that what I did in the first half wasn't a fluke. So, it's baseball. Most guys are gonna get some kind of injury. Hopefully it's not too big at one point or another.
No question, the rigors of the regular season puts a lot of wear and tear on your body. The Diamondbacks had a fluke season last year with many of the key players, including yourself, being injured. Did you feel like you guys could have competed with the Dodgers and the Giants if the pieces were in place?
Yeah, you never really want to make excuses. I guess you never know. We started off with most of our guys healthy, minus our ace pitcher, but still started off really bad. So there was no excuse there. In baseball, it's kind of weird because you have a couple injuries and your team gets behind a little bit in the standings, and it's hard to know exactly what would have happened. But I think we would have been a little bit more competitive.
AJ, Major League Baseball has set up a committee to examine the pace of play in the game. We understand the fans' perspective on the issue, but as a player, do you feel the pace of play is an issue in the league right now?
Yeah, when you're playing 162 games a year and you're trying to get on a plane later. I think they're looking for. I know they really want to get the pace of play better, and they want to get the calls right. So hopefully they could kind of figure out a good way to keep the pace of play right, but at the same time be able to go review plays and get them right. It's good for watching it. It's good for playing it. Yeah, I'm all for it.
AJ, all those traditionalists out there aren't going to be too happy with you. But let's go back to 2013 when the Dodgers clinched the division at Chase Field, your home ballpark, and celebrated by jumping into the outfield swimming pool. Did you and your teammates take offense to that? And have you ever gone for a swim yourself in the pool?
Great question. No, I haven't jumped in the pool. I probably never will anymore. the Dodgers is the Dodgers. They do things a little differently. Yeah, I mean, you take a little offense to it. Taking it to the next level like that when you've only won the division that's a little bit much. You take it to celebrating with your teammates to more kind of rubbing it in your opponent's face, and that's kind of what we felt. And whether they regret it or not, I don't know. But it is what it is. It's not. No one's too bitter about it.
Well, AJ, let's jump back in time a little bit here. Back in 2009, you were selected 17th overall in the MLB draft by the Diamondbacks. Just share about that draft day experience and what it was like for you.
Well, so I'm from Connecticut. I had a couple people over, and it was pretty wild too. I remember the Nationals had picks 1 and 10. They called me at 10, they called me and my agents. And they just signed Strasburg for a whole lot of money and told me, hey, would you take way under slot? You have to leave tomorrow, and you have to sign tomorrow. Nobody signs like the day after. Pretty much said either, I'll come out and sign tomorrow, but you got to give me slot, or, give me a couple days and I'll sign for that. And I didn't hear anything on the other end. And then all of a sudden they said, all right, see you, we'll go to the next guy. So then they hung up, and I said, all right, next team that wants me, I don't care what they want, I'm in. And then the Diamondbacks called at 17, and that was it.
Lastly, AJ, what was your favorite moment as a big league player?
I'd say going back to Fenway was pretty cool. Kind of going back in front of a bunch of people I knew, and yeah, I did. It's different than New York too. New York's just a circus for me. So yeah, the big city there. So I'll say going back to Fenway.
I'd like to meet a New Englander who doesn't have the same dream. Thanks for joining us so much, AJ. Fabulous stuff. Coming up, the college basketball guys join Preston at the debate desk to preview the upcoming season. Don't go anywhere.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Aww, you should pick that up.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
For you.
They want to help, but don't know how. Teach your kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
From the moment that UConn cut down the nets in Arlington, Texas, college basketball fans have been waiting for November so that we once again can be embraced by the college basketball season. I'm joined by our college hoops experts, Josh Markowitz and Alex Ofori, to get their predictions going into the season. We're going to start with Player of the Year predictions. Josh, who is your Player of the Year?
My preseason Player of the Year is DeLon Wright from the Utah Utes.
Wow.
He is a do-everything guard that led this team in scoring, assists, steals, and blocks last year. And also averaged almost 7 rebounds a game as a guard. That's ridiculous. He's a defensive monster, efficient on offense, almost 63% of his twos go in the basket. And he's going to get an expanded scoring role on this Utes team that's looking to make the NCAA tournament this year.
Yeah, I like the pick. I'm not quite sure if Utah is going to be good enough for him to be up there yet. For my pick, I'm going to go with Jahlil Okafor. Most people should have heard of him. #1 freshman recruit. And I'm going to go with him just because he really does it all. There's a huge scoring void left open by the exit of Jabari Parker to the league. And now you got a guy who's just an athletic freak. He's a beast in the low post. He rebounds from anywhere. And I think he'll just end up being a real juggernaut for that Duke team.
My thing with freshmen is the only 2 freshmen to ever win National Player of the Year are Kevin Durant and Anthony Davis. He's not on that level.
It has been a while since we've had a freshman B Player of the Year, but we can go to Freshman of the Year now, and we can safely assume who is that Freshman of the Year for you?
That would be Jahlil Okafor as well. And I think just as a player, he can really do it all. And when you look at it, there's not a lot of big men, not a lot of dominant big men in the college game right now. And he's certainly someone who can, there's not many players out there like him. He can rebound the ball, and he's actually a good passer out of the post as well.
Jahlil Okafor probably will end up winning this award, but I think D'Angelo Russell of Ohio State is a guy that's not getting enough attention. Ohio State struggled to score the ball last year, 128th in offensive efficiency without Deshaun Thomas. And now, LaQuinton Ross, Lenzel Smith, and Aaron Kraft, their 3 leading scorers are gone. Enter D'Angelo Russell.
This guy was one of the best scorers in high school basketball last year, and that's what he's known for. And he, I think, can lead the Buckeyes in scoring and be a great freshman.
I like the 2 picks. Okafor obviously seems like a stronger candidate right now. But with every season in the top 25, there are a couple overrated teams. So, Josh, who is the most overrated team coming in the season?
I think it's Michigan State, and I think they're getting overrated because of the brand name that they are. Outside of that top 5, the depth is really shaky, and they lost a bunch of production from Gary Harris, Adrian Payne, Keith Appling, and I don't know how they're going to replace it. Their freshman class coming in this year isn't great, and no, I just don't trust this bench. And who's going to take over beside Brandon Dawson?
At the end of the day, you got Tom Izzo still around. He always coaches them up. I mean, this is the kind of setup. Whenever they're underrated, they always end up somewhere near the Final Four. Me, I'm going to go with Syracuse. I mean, you look at it, they lost Tyler Ennis, Jeremy Grant, and Boeheim was not pleased about losing those guys because he knows they're going to be big shoes to fill. I mean, you got a true freshman subbing in for Ennis there and Caleb Joseph, who we still have to see. He can sort of create his own shot, but we'll have to see if he can lead that offense there. And just overall, I don't think they really have enough offensive weapons. Rakeem Christmas, not really an offensive player, and Cooney's a one-dimensional shooter and the only shooter they have.
We can make 1 point though. You said it's enough. Tom Izzo being there for Michigan State's good enough, but Jim Boeheim has the second most wins in college basketball history. But preseason Final Four projections now, guys. Who are your 4 going to the Final Four? And give us a quick who's your champion. Alex, we'll start with you.
Yeah. So my Final Four are Kentucky, Wisconsin, UNC, and then Rick Pitino's Louisville Cardinals make it in once again. And the reason for that, I mean, Kentucky, look at it, they're just absolutely loaded. Everyone knows it. I mean, they've got guys riding their bench who would probably be star players for other power conference teams.
Yeah, I also have Kentucky in my Final Four, but the platoon system scares me a little bit just because of their wing depth. But again, they're going to be so monstrous on the defensive side of the ball that they should be fine.
Who are your other 3?
Louisville as well, Wisconsin, and my champion, the Arizona Wildcats.
Okay.
Because I think they were great defensively last year, and I think they're going to be better this year offensively with Stanley Johnson coming in. He's a better offensive player than Aaron Gordon was last year, and they're deeper. That's a great recipe.
I do like Arizona, but they always seem to sort of fail to get to that Final Four level.
Brennan actually was hurt last year, though, and
That's
he's
true.
back.
That is true. But me, for my champion, I'm actually going with UNC. I mean, you got Marcus Page, best point guard in the country, and I just think their big men depth will carry them over the top.
Well, tons of bold predictions. No Kentucky picks here for the championship. And with the day 1 almost upon us, we will see who's cutting down the nets on April 6th in Indianapolis. Coming up next, Steve and I are at the desk to debate what could have been with the injury-riddled stars of the past couple decades.
This week, Marcus Lattimore announced his retirement from professional football at just 23 years old. Lattimore entered the University of South Carolina in 2010 as one of the most hyped running back recruits in Gamecock history and showed tremendous promise during his time in Columbia. Unfortunately, injuries derailed his career, forcing Lattimore into early retirement, which begs the question, which athlete from our lifetime career was most derailed by injuries?
There's only been one athlete that has been just destroyed by injuries, and that's Greg Oden. Just because you look at this guy, he was so promising, but every time he steps out of the court, he'd get touched by a fly and he'd be out for the next 3 months. But just think about the talent that this guy, he could have been one of the big premier big men in the league. You're looking at this guy, whenever he was healthy and played, 20 points a night, 10 rebounds, and he blocked every shot that came into the lane.
And what's such a shame about that is the NBA is really devoid of great big men. Dwight Howard, guy can't post up at a lick.
But just think about the Trailblazers.
Their lineup would be incredible right now.
If you replaced Robin Lopez.
Oh my gosh. But I'm going to go with a guy who historically his injuries caused him to not be one of the best. Grant Hill. He's the only player in NBA history to lead the All-Star ballot in voting his first 2 seasons in the league. His 3rd year, he averaged 21, 9, and 7, the only player since Larry Bird to do that. And then only Oscar Robinson, LeBron James, and Larry Bird combined for more points, rebounds, and assists their first 6 seasons in the league. And then he didn't play for essentially 3 years, and he was never the same player after. Preston, this guy would have been one of the best players in NBA history if he stayed healthy.
He would have been up there, but I don't know if he's, look, we're at a dearth of big men right now in the league, and Greg Oden would have solved that. I think that's one of the bigger issues right now. Well, that's all the time we have for today, but if you missed anything or want to watch it again, check us out on youtube.com/101sports.
Also be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at 101sports.
As always, thanks for watching, and until next time,
whose side are you on?